Hi guys, if it's Friday, it's Dan and Dirty Woodscraft. Stay with me. Okay, today guys, what we're going to talk about is I had a subscriber and I had a very nice conversation here recently that I want to share a little bit with you. And what we were talking about was foraging. Okay, now what I'm about to say is relative to my location in Alabama. What is relative in your location, that's your homework to find out. But we've all heard the concept of living off the land, of going out and being able to fend for yourself in nature. And I have, in the past, when I was a young man, me and my stepbrothers and stuff would do challenges where it was you had to catch it, clean it, eat it. And so it was to gather whatever you could. You went hungry a lot. It did make you a better hunter, and it did make you a better whatever because you learned to recognize. So let's look at, there are three major groups that I think of this. There's hunting, fishing, foraging. Okay? Foraging. It's easy to track down a dandelion or something like that. So the thing that you need to know is in your environment. Now here is what I recommend for how to learn this. What we did originally was, it was a group of us, there were 10 of us in that group. And each of us selected 5 very, very common plants. Now I want to learn a resource that is so common I am tripping over it everywhere. Okay? And so, not all, but mine were dandelion, because I learned how I could make a coffee out of it, I could make a salad out of it, I could boil it and make it as a pot herb, I could dry it and do certain things, etc. White pine, I could take that and make it into a tea. Mimosa, which was another name for it is silver tree, and can be used to make teas out of. Black walnut was everywhere down here. Pecan was everywhere down here. Kudzu was everywhere down here. And several other, like dock and stuff like that. Those were plants that I learned to identify and how to use and prepare them. Now, each member of the 10-person group had their 5. They were different than my 5. And then after we had spent a little bit of time and done some experiments, we got some knowledge. Then when we came together as a group, we shared that knowledge. And I would pass on my knowledge of how to do poke salad, or how to do dandelion, or how to make tea out of pine needles to the group. Well, when you got 10 people, each doing 5, that's 50 plants that you learn from your environment. See? And over the course of the year of us sharing information, my larder of plants grew to 50 that I could recognize, kudzu, etc., and how to process, how to eat, etc. Now, plants are not available year-round, and so it's a seasonal thing. Trees are, but at the same time, they don't always have the nuts and etc., so acorns, stuff like that, are available to a point. Okay? But that's always going to produce plants. Okay, there's going to be a lot of nutrients in that and a lot of nutrition, but it's plants. So how about some meat? Well, fishing. A common thing that I carried was an old hobo fisher like this. Now I did many years ago, I think like 2010, 2012, I did the video showing how I made this. All it is a soup can. All it is a lid that goes like onto dog food. A lot of times you can find these around the dog food aisle. It's where you're going to dip out dog food and reseal it. I took one of those lids, an old mop handle, a screw going through the middle of it. Inside here is fishing tackle. On the outside of it is fishing line in a loop to make a hobo fisherman. So you can take it, cast it, wind it. It's a hobo fishing tool. You go easily on the side of a pack. Doesn't cost anything, doesn't weigh nothing, and it was a quick and easy way to have multiple types of lures and things that I could then fish, other than for me to gather up raw bait. Now I found in my neck of the woods The best source of fish bait is dead trees, rotten logs, because when you peel the bark back, they're just a haven for all kinds of creepy crawlies, bugs, insects, etc. I found through personal experience that if it's black, it's bitter, nothing eats it. So if you found a black cockroach, if you found a black cricket, if you found this black colored bug, other than woolly pulleys, they were bitter and nothing would eat them. It was lousy bait. So any other kind of tan earthworm, light colored, the lighter the color it seemed to be the better, worked better as bait. And so I utilized that to put out and catch fish. Now I had my active duty reel and I did drop lines. And at my gathering recently, someone gifted me a pair of these automatic fisherman reels. I had these a lot back in the 70s. Now on the end of this line, there's a swivel, so I could make up lines ahead of time. To this, I would attach a line to hang it to a tree, tie it to a stick, whatever. And it's simply a spring-loaded device that when pulled will roll out like that. See, so you pull your line out, you got the tension, and then you put the little catch onto it. If I can do this gently, just like that, and now it's kind of like a rat trap. Whenever the fish pulled, it would unlock the thing and it would take up the tension, pull the line tight. Now this would be hooked to a springy limb so the fish couldn't break the line, but this would keep tension on him. I come back and get him. And these were handy and effective. Now these may not be legal in your jurisdiction. Check ahead of time. We're going to get to that about legality here in a minute. But fishing was a great source to get protein, to get a meal, because I didn't have to necessarily be there. I could do drop lines, and down here in my south we did trot lines. Now all a trot line is a line of tough cord that goes between 2 points along a bank or across a waterway that had a series of lines on it that was baited. So you could catch 8, 10, 12 fish at a time, or what we call down here in the south, a mess, at one time. And that could provide you with all the food you needed. A couple of those reels or a couple of drop lines could provide everything I need. All I need is just, if I'm gathering vegetables, so to speak, I just want some meat to go with it. So a fish, 2 fish, 3 fish was fine. What cooking gear did I have to take? I could cook it on a fire just by putting skewers through the meat and putting it up there as a heat reflector and catching the heat and turning it and cooking it. I could cook fish, etc. that way. Another old down and dirty trick that I learned as a small child, actually off of PBS, was mud. I'd take that thick mud and take the fish and pack it in a big mud ball. So the fish is completely enclosed. Now I'd put that mud ball in the fire and rake the fire up on it, and in about 2 hours I'd cook it. When it got done, after about 2 hours, I'd rake it out, pull it off the side, let it cool, and when I pulled the dried dirt off, there was the cooked fish in the middle of it. The skin and all would come off. You didn't have to scale it. And you had the meat, you just eat the meat straight. That was an old way to do it. An old aboriginal primitive way of doing it. Now, meat. How about big meat? Blackie, how about hunting? Alright. Depending on where you're at and what state you're at, there may be animals that may be legally harvested year-round. Here in my Alabama, if the land that you are on, you have written permission on your person to hunt. That's required. 2, you have an Alabama hunting license. Small game license are like 17, 18 bucks. That'll cover all of this I'm about to talk of. 3, the animal in question can be hunted. Now there's many of the game animals that you think of, like deer and etc., have a specific season, and you can only hunt them during those seasons, and there may be requirements like wearing orange and things during those seasons while you're hunting. In the off-season, other animals may be. For example, here in my Alabama, there is no closed season on wild hog. So I can hunt hog year-round. So remember when we talked about the kit gun, if a small piggy presents himself up close, I could pop him, clean him, and have a meal off of him, say, year-round, as long as I had a legal hunting license. So a license is good in the off-season. Hog is legal to hunt year-round. Other small game animals, I believe, don't quote me, check your regulations, I believe possum and squirrel are now legal year-round. It's in your state's game laws. They publish a thing every year telling you what's legal from what date to what date and what has no closed season. Coyote has no closed season in the state of Alabama. And so you have a farmer that wants you to kill a coyote because they're raiding his chicken pen. See, you can eat coyote. You can't eat the liver. You can eat any canine, but you can't eat the liver, but you can eat a coyote. So if I'm going to harvest this animal anyway because it's a nuisance to my farm and my livestock, why not? Same thing with snake. There is no poisonous snake to eat here in Alabama. Saying that correctly, because I know some of you are going to jump on me. Venomous snakes are not poisonous snakes, they're venomous. But there are no snakes that are poisonous to eat. Now, of course, you don't want to do anything with the venom sac. You take an animal that you have, a snake that you have to shoot, because I am not looking to go hunting snake. I think they're a beautiful animal. They're doing their part in the ecosystem. Leave them alone. However, if I get a big timber rattler or a big diamondback and it's taking great exception to me and it wants to take a hunk out of me, I do not wish to be envenomated and have to spend a great deal of money for anti-venom, etc., and medical things. So it's Valhalla Express, pop. But after I do, I should be able to ethically harvest that and then turn it into meat. See what I'm saying? I would have avoided it at all costs, but I had no choice. I had to kill this animal because it was about to bite me. Well, then I can turn around and turn that into food. That's foraging for food as well, see. So, down here in my south, there are small games that are legal year-round. There are birds that are legal year-round. There are big game like hog, that can be up to 1,000 pounds, that's legal year-round. And by educating yourself. So, back to that plant idea. For those of you that have asked me to talk about how to forage and etc. Foraging is specific. It's a skill. It's based on your woods, your animals, your weather patterns, etc. Some of it will translate from me to you. Some will not. Just like you go talk to someone who lives in like New York City and ask them, how do you cross the street? It's an art form. They know how to judge the traffic and get across the street without getting run over. See, me, a podunk redneck from Alabama, would have a learning curve there, wouldn't I? Well, it's exactly the same thing in this foraging, hunting, gathering. So, your homework is this. Pick 5 plants that you're tripping over that are edible, okay? There are tons of websites that talk about foraging, etc. Get you one of them Peterson's field guides, edible plants. Learn to identify them in all seasons. Learn to identify when in the season this is edible and when it's not. Certain things are better in the beginning and then turn kind of bitter toward the end. Try them out and then find out what is palatable to you. Just because it is technically edible does not mean it is palatable. Kudzu is edible. It tastes like garbage to me. And you got to put it in a pot with a whole bunch of pork and everything else where it's just a roughage in a pork stew. Yeah, you can do that. Again, remember that piggy? So therefore, find the 5 plants. Learn 5 plants. Experiment with the 5 plants. Once you've got the 5, pick 5 more. That's how you grow your repertoire. If you've got a couple of buddies that all want to do this, do like me and my group did back then. Each person picked 5 separate ones, and then we share the knowledge that we learn from that. That's how you grow the community and you grow the knowledge. See? As far as fishing, tons of information out there on how to fish. Your local co-op and etc. is going to tell you how to fish and stuff like that. How you can harvest fish, learn to fish. It's a great way. I prefer to fish than to hunt, to be honest, because it's the lazy man's way of getting something to eat. I can go out and put out some lines and be back at camp working on my other projects, and then come every hour or two and check on my lines. What if I hook a species I don't want? Let's say I hook a turtle. Well, I take my needle nose pliers, I remove the hook, and I release the animal. I can live catch release without having to take the animal, see. And so that's a big advantage in fishing over. There's no catch and release in hunting. There is in fishing. So if I get a target animal that I'm not wanting to get, I can just turn it back loose. See, big advantage. Yes, you can live off the land, but it is one of the most difficult things you will ever do. With patience, practice, and above all else, proper knowledge. And this is one of those things I really stress, guys. You need the knowledge before you get the hands on. This is almost exactly opposite of everything else we do in woodscraft, because an accident of picking the wrong plant can be very bad. Most things just going to make you sick. There's going to be very little that's truly poisonous that's going to kill you, but if you made a bad choice, it's probably going to make you sick. And one of the rules that I apply to all of the foraging for plants is this: never learn a plant that has any poisonous look-alike. So if this plant is abundant in my woods, however, this and this plant look a lot alike, and this one is real bad poisonous, and it's off the list. Because in a survival situation, in that kind of stress, I do not want to make a mistake. I'm already in a bad situation. I'm having to forage. I don't want to make it worse by making myself sick. So don't even look at those. Focus strictly on the plants that are super common, you're tripping over, and that have no poisonous lookalikes. Therefore, I'm hedging my bet on my side of the table that I'm not going to make a mistake. Fishing, same way. Educate yourself with what kind of fish, what kind of habitat, what kind of environment do they like. Hunting, what animals are available, what can I legally harvest, how can I humanely harvest them, and then how do I process them into food. You know, after you've harvested the animal, it's not to try to look it up on the phone and figure out how you clean it. That's not a good thing, especially in the summer months, because heat is your enemy. So you've got to process it quickly, otherwise the heat's going to spoil it, and that's a big waste for everybody. Hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Please leave any questions or comments below, and hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me before you go to feed that algorithm. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.